Today, we are talking about one of India's most ambitious infrastructure projects ever. We're talking about a plan to build highways not on the ground, but literally in the sky. Let's dive into this massive 1.25 lakh crore vision they're calling Parvatmala.
So just imagine this for a second. What if, instead of being stuck in a massive traffic jam or trying to navigate some treacherous mountain road, you could just, well, fly right over it? That's really the core idea here. India has taken the humble ropeway, the kind you see at a ski resort or a temple, and turning it into a serious mainstream form of public transportation. It's a pretty radical idea.
All right, let's get into our first section, India's highway in the sky. We're going to introduce the official name for this huge plan, the Parvatmala Pariyojana.
So what is it exactly?
Well, Parvatmala is the National Ropeways Development Programme, and you've got to understand this is a fundamental policy shift. We're not just talking about one or two projects here and there. Nope. This is a government-led push to build a nationwide network of ropeways for pretty much everything, from daily commutes to tourism, all the way to national security.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the 1.25 lakh crore plan. To really get your head around how serious this is, we've got to look at the sheer scale and the strategy behind it.
And yeah, that first number is just staggering. The whole program is backed by an estimated investment of 1.25 lakh crore rupees. I mean, that kind of money tells you everything. This isn't some niche experiment. It's being treated with the same level of importance as a major national highway project.
And the physical scale is just as ambitious. The goal? To build over 1,200 kilometers of new ropeway routes. And get this, that's spread across more than 250 different projects planned all over the country, from the high Himalayas to the most crowded city centers.
Now here's what's really interesting. This isn't just about moving people from point A to point B. It's a strategy with a bunch of different goals. First, it's about economics, connecting remote areas to boost their local economies. Second, it's about solving real urban problems, giving people a new way to beat city traffic. And third, and this is absolutely crucial, it's about strengthening national security in those sensitive border areas.
So the big question is, how do you actually pay for something this massive? Well, the answer is public-private partnerships, or PPPs, and they're using two really clever models. For the busy routes, say a major pilgrimage site where you'll get a lot of traffic, they use the DBFOT model. Basically, a private company builds it and makes its money back from ticket sales. Simple. But for the more strategic projects that might not be as profitable, they use something called the hybrid annuity model, or HAM. In this case, the government steps in and shares the risk, paying for a big chunk of construction. This makes even the less commercially viable, but still really important projects attractive to private investors.
Now for Section 3, projects taking flight. Let's take a look at how this grand plan is actually moving from paper blueprints to real steel cables in the air. Because this isn't just a future dream. These projects are already happening. This is a great way to see the variety we're talking about. On one hand, you have the huge Sonprayag to Kedarnath ropeway. That's a nearly 13-kilometer-long route high in the mountains for pilgrims. And then you have something totally different, like the urban ropeway in Varanasi. It's basically a metro system in the sky, designed to carry almost 96,000 people a day. And you can see those different funding models in action, like the HAM model being used for the Mahakaleshwar temple. And this brings us right back to that critical strategic goal. This quote from the Prime Minister directly ties the Parvatmala program to national security. Think about it. In high-altitude border regions where roads can be totally blocked by snow or landslides for months, a ropeway gives you a reliable, all-weather connection. It's a genuine lifeline for both civilians and for military logistics.
But as you can imagine, with any project of this size, especially in really sensitive areas, the path is rarely smooth. And that brings us to Section 4, a major challenge, a conflict on sacred ground in the Bijli Mahadev case.
On the surface, the promise was just incredible. This project in Himachal Pradesh was going to turn a really difficult, hours-long trek to a sacred temple into a simple 7-minute ride. This would open up the site to elderly pilgrims, people with physical limitations. It sounded amazing.
But there was a huge problem. Local communities, the local governments, even the temple custodians themselves, they all rose up in opposition. They argued that this project wasn't just a convenience, it was a direct threat to the sanctity of their sacred land and the very fragile mountain ecosystem.
So the case ended up before the National Green Tribunal, and the allegations were serious.
Opponents claimed the project was just rushed through without doing the necessary homework. They said there was no proper environmental impact assessment, no studies on whether the area could even handle the massive number of new people, and that the geological surveys were inadequate. And crucially, they alleged a violation of the Forest Rights Act, saying the government completely failed to consult with the local communities who have lived on and protected that land for generations.
So, this brings us to our final section, the path forward. This conflict really highlights the central dilemma facing the entire Parvatmala program. How do you balance the need for speed with the need for sustainability?
And this really is the ultimate question, isn't it? The Bijli Mahadev case shows exactly what can happen when that push for speed potentially overlooks the necessary due diligence. The time you think you're saving by fast-tracking clearances can very quickly turn into long delays, messy legal battles, and a total loss of public trust.
So in the end, the success of this transformative 1.25 lakh crore vision isn't just going to be measured in kilometers of cable they lay or how many projects they complete. It's going to depend on whether India can build these highways in the sky on a foundation that is as strong environmentally and socially as it is technologically advanced. Getting that balance right, well, that's everything.